So welcome everybody. Today we are going to have Lisa Wilson lead us in a dialogue about anti-racist teaching in our classes. I think we should be thinking about from our perspective and for our students. So she'll lead us in a dialogue about this. She'll give us a little presentation, and from there we'll have time to chat and we'll get into it deeper. So I've known Lisa forever. I can't remember when I actually met her, but she is incredible. She is an inspiration. She is just amazing. I don't have any other words other than amazing adjectives to say about you. So, yes. So thank you for joining us and leading us in today's conversation. Remember, coffee chats are just a space for us to have time to talk, time to come together, time to be with one another, time to get support from one another. So we are glad that you are here, and we hope that you want to join us on Facebook as well. We also have our ECE Faculty Collective website. So make sure you're checking that out, because that is all resources faculty have shared and we continue to share. So please use those resources. They are available to you. I can't tell you, I've been using the video library resources for my semester teaching observation class. It has been one of the most valuable things for me, having all those resources right there, easy to access. So please, please, please use those resources, and I'll put them in chat after everybody is done introducing themselves. Renee, is there anything else we want to say to our faculty collective group before we turn it over to Lisa?
You know, the only thing I just want to say is I hope everybody's doing okay right now. And I also just want to just kind of put this out there. If anybody's not doing okay or feels like they want to talk or just, you know, wants to connect, make sure you get in touch, because every single one of us would be interested in talking. And I'm not trying to say I'm like Superwoman and doing 100% perfect. I'm not. But I think we all just kind of, you know, stay together as much as possible. We can still nourish our souls. I had an opportunity to see two of my colleagues face to face a couple weeks ago for a little bit, socially distant, and, you know, not hugging or anything like that. And it just, it brought me back down and kind of, you know, made me feel really good. So anyways, I just want to extend that. If anybody's looking for a friend or looking to talk or just, you know, having a rough day, my email, I'll put it in the chat. You just shoot me an email, I'll send you my cell, or, you know, I'll just put my cell in the chat, and then feel free to give me a call.
Can I add that people should introduce themselves in the chat? We have some new faces, so it'd be great to know who everyone is and where you're from.
And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Wilson. Lisa?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I put together a little PowerPoint, but it's really supposed to be for us just to spark up some conversation and lead it, to kind of facilitate this discussion a little bit. And feel free in the chat to ask questions. And Kim Barker was going to help me with oh, there she is.
I'm here.
So she's going to help facilitate the chat. So if things come up and questions come up or whatever, then she'll go ahead and facilitate it. And then if it's okay with everyone, if you want to weigh in, you know, before I start asking questions, because I'm going to make it really interactive, you can use that applause feature, this one on reactions. Use that one for me. That way I know. And then Kim knows too, and then I can call on you. But we're going to start with a little bit of a PowerPoint. It's funny because I just came from leading like a religious group. So I was going to we're going to start with a moment of prayer, but we're not going to do that right now. Okay. What we're going to do is start with just a moment of good morning. I like how Renee checked in with everyone. It's always important just to everybody, like, let's be human beings and check in with each other. I mean, we are literally in the middle of a pandemic and we're still working. So kudos to you. Okay, I'm gonna queue up my PowerPoint here, and here we go. It's exciting. Let's see here. All right. Ooh, That's the name. This is the name I put on here. Becoming an anti-racist through intentionality and whole living. I like that because for me, it really means, I think that's what we do as ECE professionals and just educators in general. I think we are very intentional with how we work, or we should be at least, with children, with community members and our colleagues, and be very purposeful how we enter into spaces. So let's begin. Here's a nice little quote I like to start off with, because I really believe this. A dream without movement and without people will never exist in reality. So everyone here is necessary for the work that we're doing. The work that we're doing is trying to prepare future generations. And so it is a big, huge, heavy lift and calling. And so congratulations for you for being a part of it. But no, I recognize that it's not without a lot of selfless nights and hard work. So I do teach at Pacific Oaks right now. I've taught at Santa Monica College, and I've taught at College of the Canyons. So I really do enjoy being able to work with students. I own my own preschool for a couple of years, but I've been in early ed for over 20. And I did own a staffing agency too, where I staffed out to preschools as well. So, you know, I know that the teacher preparation piece is a lot of work, but I know that we're able to do it. And in our current climate, I want us to really sit and think about what it means to be an anti-racist. So we're going to try to drill it down as much as possible today. And so your interaction is really necessary in order for this to be as meaningful as possible. And I want to also say about anything when it comes to anti-racism, it's on a continuum. I might be a little bit more like steeped in the work because I have my education in multicultural context, African-American studies. However, it doesn't make me an expert, and I'm not the know-it-all. I'm constantly reading and learning myself. So hopefully we're able to learn together. I'm able to offer some insight, and if we can stay in that space of humility, then we'll be able to do a lot together. So why do you do what you do? Like, why have you decided to teach? I want you to just pop it in chat. I want to hear from you. I don't know if I have the capability to select all and save it, but I love to put it down, and I love to share it, not your personal reason why, but to put it into a format when I'm working with other organizations and share, why teachers do what they do. So
Lisa will be saving the chat, and we pull out like the resources people share, and we send that to our group. So anything that gets shared that you want the world to know about, it goes into chat, and then we send it out to everyone.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so I think the real thing is just, thinking about why we do what we do is really key, understanding our why. So I'll share with you why I do what I do. I was I'm a Black biracial woman. That's how I identify. And I was raised really moving around quite a bit. We did not have money growing up. I remember being in a homeless shelter as a family at one point in our life, and it was very challenging, but against all odds, I was able to complete my college education a couple times over. I've got a couple of degrees, which was always, something that I really was and I'm proud of. But more than anything, I'm proud of the person I am and the people that I have around me that really believe in me and love me. So I do what I do because I have children, and I want this world to be a better place. And I feel like it's all of our responsibilities to make sure that we all are seen and we feel heard and we are loved. So, and we're treated like human beings. I think that's the most important thing. So anyway, that's why I do what I do. And I'd love to hear, just maybe pull out 3 things from chat, 3 different people. Kim, if you want to share why people do what they do.
Yeah, you've got a great bit of information, lots of meaningful responses here, rich responses. So one says, I love young people and I love learning aside them. One says, I love to work with students and support their learning and development. I love this one. I saw how teachers impacted lives and I wanted to do the same.
Wonderful. Was that 3 already?
That was 3.
More. Okay, do
one
more.
Let's do it. Okay. Help make a difference.
Pick my list.
Oh, okay. Well, here, let me do Heather's, and then I'll do Lila's if I can find it here. Help make a difference and educate children and adults so they can be successful.
Mm.
And then Lila, here's Lila. Generativity. I am so happy to reach children via nurturing teachers. And Lila, I love when people give words that I need to go open a dictionary and really look into and understand, learn how to pronounce. So maybe you can help us out with that.
Yeah, define the word in chat. That is always fun. All right, so good. So I think one thing that I heard common thread, we're doing it because really it's our passion. We feel called to it, and we believe we can really make a difference. So I really do admire people that want to extend their learning and further their understanding about topics that might be a little bit hard to talk about. And I think that it's good to prepare ourselves for dialogue with students about any kind of social justice related issues that we might not be equipped to do without these types of opportunities to engage in dialogue. And so one thing about this I do want to share with everyone today. As we're talking, you may disagree with what someone's saying. You may disagree with what I'm saying. I don't tone check people when I facilitate chats like this or opportunities for us to connect and build community. I don't believe in tone checking. One thing I ask is that we do, stay respectful to one another, but we can get heated because when we're talking about something that we believe in or something that we don't believe in, sometimes it can get a little bit, tough. Try not to take it as a reflection of who you are, unless it is necessary for your own self-growth, but allow a person to be in their space and share freely. Okay, I would like you to define this phrase, white supremacy culture, the best you can in chat. Just whatever comes to mind. You don't have to give a whole paragraph. Do not Google it. You're not allowed to Google this. Just put it in there, whatever you think this means to you. And if you don't know, don't worry about it. Don't put anything in chat. So white supremacy culture. Dominant culture. Sorry, Kim, I'm taking your job right now, real quick.
Oh, yeah, actually, I just said that. I was on mute, sorry.
I'm gonna do this part for the next couple of slides. Okay. Culture built on the idea that white people are superior. Power plus prejudice, better than anyone else. Damaging. Yep, it is damaging. What we are watching, living right now in some areas. Very true. Systems, traditions, culture of perpetuating white people as a superior race. Okay, let's move on. Next one, you ready? You can still define it if you want. Whiteness. Define that in chat for me. What do you think that term means? No Googling, no Googling allowed. Do the best you can. It's not a test. You're not being scored right now. Color.
Or absence of.
Beyond being Caucasian. Superficial. White light. I feel like I'm missing some. You guys are going fast. It's good. Or absence of color. Cultural based on power and status. White is better and the norm. The state of ever being marginalized for the color of one's skin. All right, here's the next one. White splain. Don't Google. What's white splain? It's an actual term. You don't worry. You know what I'm going to do? You guys are going to be so happy with me. You're going to be like, well, that was nice. I'm going to give you a glossary of these terms. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm going to give you a glossary of terms so you can study it in your lack of free time. All right. What does this one mean? White splain. Let's see what we got. Defensive behavior. Oh, this is probably still whiteness. White splain, to defend one's position, intent, behavior. Okay. When a white person tries to tell a POC person of color something or anything, white people trying to help people of color understand why they shouldn't be offended, explaining away when you have done something wrong to a BIPOC, BIPOC is an acronym, stands for Black, Indigenous, Person of Color, or People of Color. Excusing white supremacy in thinking and action, telling people of color what they think their experience is. White folks explaining their world or my world as a POC from their perspective. All right, good. I think we got a couple more. Structural racism. Define that phrase for me. Everybody's doing good so far. You're all getting an A. Structural racism. What do we got? Oh, we got one in chat. Our systems. All right. Johnson. Structures, policies, institutions into place to perpetuate white supremacy. All right. The society is set up to favor white people. Very good. Systemic and embedded racist ideas that are integrated in government laws, policies, organized group. Racism being upheld at a systemic level. Racism embedded in institution. I like that one. Good job, Anna. Racism embedded in institution. That's good. Very accurate. Racist. And don't say my granddad. You have to actually describe or put in the chat what you think, what the term racist means. In one of the workshops I did, somebody put my father. They put in chat when I said, what is racist? They said my dad. So you actually have to explain what you think a racist person is. Let's see what we got. Still getting them. I know it's a tough one. What comes to mind? Okay, a person who is okay with keeping BIPOC inferior. Is it Lila? Is that how you say your name? Lila? Lila's on it. Okay, a person who they are let me go back up. Oh, anyone who is not an anti-racist. Deborah, that was good. Belief that you are superior and everyone else is inferior based on race. Very accurate. A person who holds implicit and explicit biases based on color and other attributes. Every white person in US. Okay. A person who holds deficit views of people of color based upon their perceived racial group. Anyone who is not actively anti-racist. All right, Valerie. That was a good one. Lots of good ones. Racist ideas. Pop it in chat. What do you think that means? Racist ideas. I'm going to give you the glossary of terms. You're going to be able to go through them. Let's see what we have. Person who stands in the way of Black and brown people's progress. Okay, that's a racist. So now we're on to, that's good. Thank you, Elmida. I hope I said that correctly. I apologize if I did not.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I'm excited. Okay, racist ideas. Biases that keep us from seeing people for who they are rather than by the color of their skin. Okay, ideas or concepts built on differences in racial identity. Got one more? Anybody? Racist ideas? I know you weren't expecting a test today. People who share their prejudices to others. Yes, Angela. And that's very scary if there are people in position of power, right? Not seeing someone's color. Maybe that was meant to see someone's color. Elmida, I don't know, maybe that was what you meant. Ideas that privilege one group over another based on race. Yep. One more. Anybody got one more for racist ideas? Going once.
I'm sorry if I may add to my response. I thought
Yes.
you were asking, I got cut off several times from
Oh.
the Zoom. I'm sorry. So
It's okay.
what I was saying is if someone says I'm colorblind, I don't, you know, it doesn't matter to me that you're Black. I love everybody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To me, that's
I know.
racist because you're not accepting who I am. You don't
Yeah.
see me. You don't see me.
It's a racist act. It's a racist idea for sure. And if they act on it, then it's an act. But definitely, I agree with you. People that say they're colorblind and they don't see color, it's not true. I mean, unless you're actually physically blind, you're born blind. That's different. But yeah, people that say that, it doesn't make sense. We can dive deeper into that. Ways to keep the lines drawn between groups. Race is a social construction that supports the dominant culture and disadvantages others in every aspect of our experience. Okay, training's over. Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Coffee talk's done. Very good, Deborah. Okay, let's do race. Define race. I know it's a tough one. What is race? What do we got? Nothing in chat, nothing popping up. I know, and you can't Google it either. Okay, we got one. A social construct that has allowed white people to exploit BIPOC. Okay. Social construct based on externally identifiable characteristics. All right, Rosemary. Rosemary and Alice for the win. For the win. One more. What is race? Tied to power and status. Yes, Deborah. Okay, good. What do you see? Just put in chat a phrase or a word when you see this. After we just did everything we did, tell me what comes to mind. All right, Kim, you're back on with facilitating chat.
All right.
Can you share 3?
Let's take a look. Reverse. Payback. How come no one looks like me? It's about time. They look like me, but do not look like, but not like the child. They look like me, but not like the child. This reminds me of something that happened as a child. Are these my only choices?
2 more.
Children of color are beautiful. Invisibility.
Okay. So here's bias. Here's a definition of bias. A particular tendency, trend, inclination, feeling, or opinion, especially one that is preconceived or unreasoned. So conscious equals principles. So in chat, I would like you to, or feel free to unmute yourself, but not everybody all at once, to add to this definition. What do you think bias is? Add to this definition for me. You can unmute yourself. If we have people in chat, Kim, you can read off chat while maybe people don't want to mute themselves right now, which is fine. Or if they're doing the applaud feature.
Yeah, they haven't put it in yet, so
okay.
There's nothing yet posted.
Lisa, I was going to add one thing, because I think sometimes bias is intentional, but I think sometimes it's like you just don't even realize it too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So bias is kind of like, intentional bias is one thing. And then I think sometimes we have these biases that we don't realize unless we take the time to have these conversations and really kind of unpackage our own personal histories and our own stories and things that have happened to us to kind of who we are in our belief system. Just because you might have been taught one thing or modeled one thing doesn't mean that's the way you need to live your life.
That's good, Renee. Definitely bias is more of a conscious understanding where, like you said, it's like your moral compass, your values, your belief system. Like, these are my principles and how I live. We all have biases. What we're talking about, right, when you're talking about unconscious, we're going to get to that, which is implicit bias. But definitely you're correct. When we're talking about like a bias is an understanding of like who you are and what you believe and why. So you're more conscious of it. So just keep that in mind. I know it's kind of tricky because sometimes how we're raised and who we are is just who we are. So we feel like it's unconscious, but it really isn't, because usually with a bias, we can speak to it. Like, this is the way I am because I was raised this way. So you can usually speak to it. Whereas an implicit bias, you can't always speak to it. We'll get to that. Okay. Anybody else want to unmute themselves, or do we have in chat?
I've got some in the chat for you. To perpetuate existing systems of privilege and oppression, learned behavior can be explicit and implicit, inability to consider another perspective, unconscious.
So we're going to get to unconscious. Yeah, it's tricky to define the two because we all have biases. It's not a bad thing. It's just how, you know, it's our construct of who we are as a person, our belief system, our principles. We're aware of what our biases are. So we'll get to that. But those are good. Okay. Write in chat a phrase or a couple words, something or a word, whatever, to describe this picture. You can unmute yourself too, if you want to share a little bit more. We have any in chat yet? Nope. Anybody want
Not yet.
Go ahead, Kim.
I was saying now we do. Segregated. The shoe is on the other foot.
The shoe is on the other foot. That's true. Roles are reversed. Okay, good. I did a training and somebody put in chat relaxing. They kind of missed the point. It's like the colorblind. It's like somebody saying colorblind. The person was like, that's relaxing. Like, all right. All right, here we go. Here it is, Renee, implicit bias. Renee brought this up. This is good. So this is really important because it's that social cognition. So this is social. So this is known as implicit bias, refers to the attitudes or stereotypes. So that's the difference, the stereotype, like stereotype threats that affect our understanding, actions, decisions in an unconscious manner. I put in sensible because I feel like implicit bias makes zero sense because it's based off of fear. It's based off of fear usually because it's a stereotype. It's not what you've actually experienced. Now, sometimes you may have had a run-in with somebody that's different than you, and other people come in your life that kind of have the same type of personality, and you treat them the way that the person that did you wrong that way. I had somebody ask, is that implicit bias? Yeah, it is. We have to give each person a fair shake. So pop in chat for me if you want to add to this. I'm sure you do. What you define as being implicit.
Can I say something about this too?
Yes,
Lisa?
please.
Thanks.
Yes.
So I am certainly not an expert in this, but I've been doing a lot of research and participating in a lot of work on this topic in particular with Dr. Luke Wood and Dr. Harris down out of San Diego State. And something that really struck me, that really hit home for me as a white person raised in this society, is that implicit bias is a result of basically existing in this space. And we can't really necessarily get rid of it, or that was the way it was described to me. But once we know about it, we can't ignore it any longer. And so something that I find really interesting is the use of the word unconscious bias, because that is, in my mind, it's a way of justifying it. And I feel like once it's pointed out to us, it's our responsibility to address it. Not that we always know what the perfect way to do that is, but to own it and to do something about it, rather than to just say, oh, it's not my fault. It's unconscious bias. It's society's fault. So, and so I don't know. I remember and that understanding that yes, we all have it. It's lousy. It's horrible. It's damaging, but you can do something about it, and you do your best with what you have. So I like to not give people a pass on unconscious bias, because it's not unconscious once you know it exists, and then
Mhm.
we start figuring out what we can do. So sorry.
Thank you, Rosemary. It's very true. You do not know until you know, and then you have to make a decision, right? Yeah. All right. Kim, we have a couple things in chat to share. 3 things would be good.
Okay. Actually, assumptions. Lila says attitudes or words modeled from a person's early childhood years that are still there even in if the person doesn't know it. Unconscious is not intentional. That's what we have so far.
Okay, good. So Rosemary touched on something that's really key. So once you've been kind of called out on something that you have done wrong, then it's your responsibility. It's my responsibility to make it right. So I 100% agree on that. But becoming conscious can be really hard for people. Usually it's because, in my opinion, the work that I've done is a lot of times people don't want to admit to themselves that they are deficient in an area, that they lack some kind of growth in an area. Like I've had people say, I don't have racist ideas. I have Black friends. I'm married to a Black man. I have biracial kids. You know, my best friend's Black. One of those statements alone is, that right there is ridiculous to even say that kind of stuff. So depending on who you have in your circle and your friends doesn't make you less, implicit or unwoke or unconscious. It just doesn't. It's individual work and journey, like Rosemary was saying. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that.
Lisa, Lila says becoming conscious takes a lot of practice.
Takes a lot. It does. You're right. Okay, so how do we become conscious? Rosemary touched on this. So I like to say, I like to use the word woke. And in our CARE collaborative, we came up with a really good acronym. And the acronym is working on kindness every day. So we'll get to that. But so woke is a term that you may have heard, like I'm woke, so it's a byword for social awareness. Like I'm totally aware of my implicit biases and I'm going to work on them. So I do want to take a moment though, to kind of just for a moment, to also talk about understanding bias, not just in race, but gender, sexuality. We also have to be very aware that we might have implicit unconscious biases or conscious biases towards people that are gay because of our religious upbringings or what you currently practice and as a part of your religion or just part of who you are. That cannot bleed into the classroom. So part of the anti-racist work, even though the word racist is in there, it also has to do with not having those types of ideas about people and not being subjected to that kind of lack of empathy because maybe it's not your belief system. So even if you personally don't agree with people whom are gay, doesn't mean that that's right, and it cannot bleed into the classroom. So I'm just saying that because I feel like that is always something that I'm supposed to put out there, because I feel like as we're facilitators of education, we cannot allow our biases and our implicit biases to stand in the way of creating safe spaces for our students, because it is part of who they are, regardless of what we believe. So I just like to also include that in this type of conversation.
Robin left a great
read it
message here that goes right along with that. Your reflective beliefs and unconscious bias may be in conflict with each other too. Dissonance. It doesn't excuse anything, but it can be very uncomfortable and difficult.
Yeah, and I find this work can make people really uncomfortable. I do. I find this work, and when we talk about race, when we talk about sexuality, when we talk about politics, it makes people really uncomfortable. we should be able to be in a space where we can talk about differences and not be disrespecting one another, name calling. We should be able to model that for our students, especially in a classroom setting. And I know it can be hard. I mean, believe me, I've been in a lot of different spaces, but I feel like with practice, we'll get there. What else do we have in chat?
Oh, Lisa just put something in. It is only when we are uncomfortable. I love that, Lisa. It is only when we are uncomfortable that we are forced to grow.
Mm-hmm.
No
That's
truer
good.
words, right? No truer words. That's it.
And part of our equity focus when we're talking about working with students and like wanting to recruit diverse talent and wanting to inspire or create environments where students feel inspired to want to teach, especially in the community college district, you have to think to yourself, okay, I have a group of students and we want to be able to recruit students that are going to be potentially great teachers. I remember my first experience at a community college. It was at Riverside Community College, and I had a white professor. She was in her late 60s, and she was the reason why I wanted to teach at a community college. Everything about her embodied what I felt it meant to be a facilitator of education. I felt like this woman was non-judgmental. Her classroom was a safe space. She truly loved her students, and I felt it. And I say that because being a Black biracial woman, I never had a Black teacher growing up ever. And I only had 2 male teachers in my entire academic journey. And I really was looking for more when I went to college, you know, to be just in a different space, because I hadn't been in a Black kind of space before, and I really wanted that. I felt like I needed it for my identity. But this teacher really truly saw me, wanted to know about my history, wanted to know what got me to where I was at, and she believed in me, and she gave me the roadmap on how I could become a community college instructor. And I'm forever grateful for her being in my life. She really was a person that showed me my color wasn't going to, you know, limit my opportunities. So, but she was truthful with me too, that there was, you know, inequity in hiring practices, a lot of nepotism in community colleges and the way people are hired. And so she, I was grateful for her being so candid. But just so you all know, you know, it's not necessary that we have always teachers that are the same color of students. It would be great. I mean, it would be great. California is so diverse. We should have more representation. However, we need the best people, you know, that are willing to see students and hear their stories and have really truly safe spaces, right, where they can learn and know that they're valued. So anything else in chat before I move on?
Polly says conversations about racism and bias make me feel more comfortable. I feel safer in a space where equity is even a conversation.
That's good. And you know, I would encourage you too, with my students at Pacific Oaks, I take time to ask them what's on their mind. You know, I like to have opportunities where we talk about current events, so they can have a safe space to communicate and really learn from one another. And so there's a way to tie all that back to, you know, our lesson plans and what we're doing, right? We have to keep our mind open for those types of opportunities, so our students know that their education, what they're currently doing right now, is meaningful for their life's work. So then here's a simple 3-step thing that I like to kind of go off of when it comes to talking about being conscious is slow to speak, you know, really listening, quick to listen and not respond. I know a lot of times it's hard to do that, especially when it's an issue you don't agree with and someone is just filibustering about something that you don't agree with. You want to stop them. And I know Thanksgiving's coming up. Of course, we have restrictions on how many people we can have with us and how long we can celebrate because of the pandemic. But I know Thanksgiving is coming up. And so sometimes with a family, extended family coming, those sometimes can be, you know, not easy, and God only knows. However the election's going to go, one way or another, somebody's going to be upset, right? So you know, how do we create spaces that we feel safe in our own homes, right? Because if you have like a virtual Thanksgiving and some people over, things are going to come up. So it's good to start thinking about how you're going to be measured in those spaces where you can still show love to your family, even though you know, they may have different beliefs than you on politics. Quick to listen is really important. And then being slow to anger. That's something that I personally have had to work on, because if I look to be woke as a woman of color, for me, I could stay angry most of the time, or I can choose to, you know, move forward and try to make some changes. So I do the latter most of the time, 95% of the time. 5% of the time, I might get a little bit angry about some stuff. It's not a bad thing as long as it produces some good opportunities for change. What do we have in the chat, Kim?
Bible verse / theology.
Can somebody unmute and elaborate?
This is just the Bible verse: be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger. I was just commenting.
Oh yeah, it's in the book of James. Thank you.
So Lisa, I wanted to make a comment on, you know, you're saying there are times when you are angry, and I think, you know, one thing that I've learned as we've gone, you know, I've had the opportunity to go kind of through this process with you as a mentor, and Rachel and Renee and you know, several others. And I think one of the things that I have come to realize is that in those moments when you are feeling that anger, that we as allies need to make sure that we are sharing that space with you and holding that space for you in those moments. And I think that has been one of the most beautiful lessons that I have learned through all of this, is just appreciating that anger and that frustration, and allowing myself to feel it with you, and to begin to recognize I will never understand, but to recognize that it's there and that it's valid.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. And I definitely feel like, you know, our collective, we have major allies that, you know, I feel I've known Renee for a long time, and I've felt very safe with her from day one. And when I share with her, she's not tone checking me, and she's hearing me. And she's, one thing I love though too, she gets angry when I'm upset, and Renee's like, yeah. So I love that. You know, I love that, because when somebody's in, they're in all the way for you, and you feel that love and that support. So it feels good, you know, calling your friends when you're going through something, you know, make sure, like, I love that, you know, Rachel, I believe, Rachel, you founded the collective, right? The ECE collective.
This was a collaborative effort with myself, Deanna Hall, Renee.
Oh, okay.
It was a group of us together who wanted to figure out, how do we survive the pandemic with hard to convert classes. And it's just turned into this amazing community of people who come together, people who want to be a part of a group, who just want to have a safe space to come and talk and just feel connected to something. And I think it speaks to exactly what you're talking about, is it's another form or a way that people can be connected and hear that their voices are heard, and that they can have a space to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought for a second that was a Halloween trick with the sound in the back, but it was a dog. Anna, I think it was your dog barking back there. Mine are quiet right now, but normally they're ridiculous during these calls.
Can I make a comment? Can I make a comment, please?
Yes, Kelly, please.
How are you? How are
Good.
you?
How are you? Good.
I'm fine, thank you. I'm glad I'm here. I will say this because I just want to be honest.
Yes, please.
At first, I wasn't going to attend the meeting today. And I'll say because of the topic.
Okay.
But I must say now that I'm happy that I'm here. And I want to say to Renee, thank you. And Rachel, all of you. I attend the coffee chat, which I appreciate. And I think this is really good to do. In my class, I teach child family community. And I talk about racism. And I would say 10 years ago, when I would bring up the word racism, my students, excuse me, start over. I teach at San Bernardino Valley College. So, and my students would tend to put their head down when I would talk about racism. As the years has gone, and I would say the past 2 years, now when I talk about racism, their heads, they're looking at me, they're not looking the other way, they're not on their phone, there's dialogue. And I always will say this, that we have to have dialogue regarding racism. And another thing that we have to do, we have to understand each other's perspective. You know, and I give the example of, it's hard for some people to really understand what is racism because they haven't experienced it. And I give this example for me. I have both of my parents. Both of my parents are alive, and I'm blessed for that. But I have a lot of friends who've lost their loved ones, their mom and dad. And I feel for them, but I would never know how it really feels to lose a parent until it happens to me.
Yeah.
And racism, I think that's one of the things that we have to realize is that, you know, you don't really fully understand it until it happens to you, but you have to appreciate someone else's perspective of what they're going through. And I think that's important to do that. And I might be going off the subject, but.
No, Kelly, you're fine.
Okay. All right. Okay. And I think also that we have to start doing, and I say this all the time in my classroom, we have to talk about race with our young children. So then they'll know how to appreciate and celebrate differences. It's just like when I was in school and I was a preschool teacher, I used to sing this song to my children. It's a melting pot. We're all the same. We're in a melting pot. And I have a bowl and I'll put the children's name in and mix it together, blend it together. We're all the same. We're all the same. But when I was doing that, I was ignoring differences. And then I wasn't teaching my children how to appreciate and celebrate differences, how to relate to someone who doesn't look like you. So I am glad that we're having this dialogue. We have to, because we have to go into a different direction with what we have been going into. And I'm just thankful. And thank you so much, Lisa. Everything you've been saying has been wonderful. It's been very enlightening to me. Thank you.
You're welcome, Kelly. And then I also want to extend, if anybody, I'll put up the information later, but if you want to be a part of a Thursday meeting or Fire Friday for the collaborative, we would love for you to attend too.
I'll add the link in there.
I also present, thank you, Kim. I also present for individual classes too. So if you feel like your students would benefit, you can bring a couple of the classes together with colleagues at your college, then we can set something up. One thing I want to say about that melting pot, I put up a poll yesterday. Cindy Stevens, I think, weighed in too, if she's on the call, Cindy. But I asked people, do they agree with that phrase, melting pot? And just like you said, Kelly, you know, that was written, that was a playwright, actually, Melting Pot, written by a Jewish fellow. His name was Israel Zun. Oh, I'm gonna mess up his name if I don't look it up. His first name's Israel, but it was amazing the past. I didn't realize the term melting pot, because I've used that too. You know, I've been in the field for over 20 years, so that's what we used, or salad bowl. We're all a salad bowl. I mean, in a salad or whatever. And I mean, you know, and so the melting pot thing came up last night in our conversation because we were talking about assimilation. And in the United States, in order to be a citizen on the actual grant, to be a citizen, right, to be granted citizenship, it says citizenship and assimilation on the actual application. And it really hit me like, man, this is to deny differences, to be an American, to be a citizen. And I think when you're born in America, we don't go through that process. But I have my sister's husband is from Lebanon and he wants to go through citizenship. And so we started doing all this research in the past 2 years, and it really started to impact me like, wow, this is very deliberate. It's really out there. Like, you have to deny who you are and where you come from to be a United States citizen. And that's why I brought up white supremacy and whiteness, because it's whiteness is not a culture, and it's not, race is constructed, and race is a made up thing in order to create hierarchy and create systems of power. And that's why we have systemic racism, structural racism. So, I mean, that's another conversation, but yes, Kelly, it's really important that we do not ignore differences, and it's important that we do not take tourism approaches to teaching children about cultures. So I remember when I was I owned a preschool. I had a teacher there that did Cinco de Mayo celebration, and she had every child, anyways, she had every child dress up with a sombrero, a poncho, okay, a fake mustache, every child, okay, and holding up a sign that said freedom. So I come upstairs and I'm seeing her do this, taking pictures. And I'm like, what? I mean, it took everything within me not to be like, stop this craziness. But I just was like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo. You know, everybody's going to be Mexican today. I almost lost it. You know, here's somebody who had been in the field for, I think, about almost 25, 30 years. And I was shocked. I was shocked that that was her understanding of how to teach children about culture and diversity. And so that's a very tourist approach, just like Chinese New Year. We're all going to have fried rice. I mean, what? So, you know, we just have to be more woke. We really do. We have to be more woke. We have to be more aware, and how we really introduce culture and diversity into the classroom. There looks like there's some things in chat. Kim, if you want to read a couple.
Actually, there's nothing new in there that we haven't. Oh, wait,
Okay,
they are coming in now. Great. Okay. So Rachel says the difference between empathy and sympathy is so critical. Thank you, Kelly. And Renee says, my master teacher had a Black child go to the back of the bus during a demonstration while I was learning from her. She thought she was teaching everyone about culture and history. He was the only Black child in the class.
He also
Yeah, go ahead.
forced a child to say the Pledge of Allegiance every single day who was a Jehovah's Witness. And one of the most powerful things I remember as a teacher in training was watching a 5-year-old stand up saying the Pledge of Allegiance. She didn't have her hand over her heart, but the teacher required that she stood up, required as she said it. And literally, I have this strong image of this child standing there saying it and tears streaming down her face. And that was one of the moments in my teacher training where I decided who I was going to be in the classroom.
Wow, Renee.
Yeah. And so how great to have that opportunity to have a chance to work with that person for a year of my life to realize I didn't want to be that.
Did you ever have an opportunity to share with her or him?
No, but on the very last day I was there, Lisa, she was abusive to me the whole year, honestly. And on the very last day I was there, she said to me, Renee, I'm so sorry I didn't treat you nicer. I was like, oh, what? And she, because I was so taken back, and she goes, I'm so sorry I didn't treat you nicer. I was intimidated by you. I was like, I'm your student teacher. I was just here to learn for the last 9 months, because it was a program we had to do 2 years of student teaching.
Wow.
So no, I didn't have the chance to talk to her, but I promise you, Lisa, I talked about that experience for 24 semesters in Intro to Teaching. So I'm
you.
that the next generation of teachers, Yeah.
In those situations, when someone says they're intimidated by you, it's because that uncomfortability, they know that they're being called to action to change something about themselves that is inherently wrong, but they're choosing not to, and they still want to blame you. So it is a form of narcissism. But anyways, that's another topic. All right, here we go. Be intentional. It's another topic, but we could talk about that another time. So we have to be very intentional with how we walk. We have to stay woke with our students. So I don't remember who came up with this in the collaborative, but it was during one of our curriculum development meetings. But I want to say it might have been Rachel. But anyway, working on kindness every day. So if you like it, there it is. Use it. Working on kindness every day. That's how we move towards radical empathy. And this is just understanding culture and bias and wokeness. I mean, you got to understand yourself. So we talked about that. I know we're kind of running out of time, right? Man, this time has flown. Okay. Understand self helps you understand the student. So until you really understand yourself, your implicit, your conscious biases, what you like, don't like. I mean, get a routine down. I mean, I know it's difficult if you've never done remote work. Believe me, I've done remote work for 5 years. So the first, I'd say, year, it was a hard transition for me. You got to take breaks just like you would do the office. Some of you probably didn't even take breaks when you were in the office or preschool, because I remember when I was a preschool teacher, it was like, who can hold their bladder the longest? I mean, the most unhealthy stuff. Or we just would forfeit our breaks constantly. Don't do that. I mean, get up, walk around, go outside, take time. What else? Apply your knowledge. And then definitely make sure that application of knowledge, we know that that's utilization in the field. We know that's transfer of knowledge, and that turns into wisdom, where we can have these rich dialogues and we can really begin to understand like who we are and why we've formulated opinions and really what's pushed us into teaching. Okay. So one thing that pushed me into teaching is I was singled out. I was 7 years old in a classroom in Los Angeles, and I was called a doormat repeatedly because I brought Michael Jackson cards to the classroom. The teacher stood me up in front of class and asked everybody, "What is Lisa?" And everybody responded, "Doormat," over and over and over again. I had no clue what the word doormat meant, so I wasn't offended. I didn't even cry. She got mad because I wasn't reacting and was like, "Lisa, do you understand that you're doing something wrong and you need to feel bad?" And I'm like, and I think my response was something like, "I love Michael Jackson." So anyways, she sat me down. I finished the day. My mom picked me up. "How was your day?" She'd always ask us. And I said, the teacher took my Michael Jackson cards. That was the biggest issue I had. By the time we got home, I said, "Mom, what does doormat mean?" "Well," she goes, "it's something that you wipe your feet on before you enter into a house." And I go, "Oh, everybody called me that today." Well, anyways, needless to say, the next day I was taken out to school. I got my Michael Jackson cards back, but I realized how really, terrible that experience was. And this teacher was obviously practicing ridiculous form of punishment. It wasn't discipline, to get me to pay attention. But guess what? I still got my Michael Jackson cards back. It did nothing for me. It did nothing to me either, because I didn't even know what the word doormat meant. All right. So, and then the next thing is we have to nurture, who we are, take care of ourselves, and that'll help us take care of students. And if you need a mental health break, take it. Our students are coming to us for direction and love and acceptance. If you're feeling overwhelmed, like you're going to snap, please take a break. All right. Is there something coming up in chat?
In what universe is that good teaching?
Right?
Alice asked that.
Alice, I have a continuation to that story, so we'll have to talk offline, but I did end up confronting the teacher 11 years later. So that's always enjoyable. I mean, really the look on the faces of those people when I walked into the elementary school, they were shocked. So Rachel, what do you want to do right now? Because we're out of time. It's 12:30. This is when our time ends.
Well, we actually, I mean, we've got it till 1 o'clock. People can stay, people can talk, people can.
Okay, cool.
It's our space, our time. We can do whatever the hell we want with it.
All right, there it is. Anything else in chat?
Nope.
Okay, so here's 3 questions I ask myself literally on a daily basis, especially because the work I do with CARE. What makes me feel satisfied? I am the most important person in my life. You are the most important person in your life. If you don't believe that, look at your life. It's time to take some stock and inventory. And if you're not feeling loved and appreciated, it's because you're not giving yourself enough time. So know that before you can give, you have to see yourself as the most important person. Truly, honestly, hard lesson for us, I think, because we are in the field of service. And we absolutely want to always give 110%, but we really cannot unless we take care of ourselves. So, and we need to know what makes it feel satisfied. And if something's not working for you, change it. Have the courage to change it. Have the courage to have brave conversations. If you feel mistreated at work, if you feel like you're not being heard at work, here's a group that's been, provided that I feel safe speaking, but that's also because I feel safe with who I am. However, if you feel like, hey, I need somebody to kind of go with me, I have a really tough thing happening, reach out. That would be my best suggestion, so you can start to really feel satisfied in what you're doing. Don't wait until you burn out to then seek help, because it's going to take more time to rebuild. Okay. And then know what frustrates you and don't go there. So if you know a person, their personality frustrates you, just spend as less time as possible with that person. Don't be in situations, in my opinion, that are going to create more stress for your life than necessary. I mean, I think one thing I've learned during this pandemic, dual pandemic, if you will, is that a like I said, I'm the most important person in my life, and life is way too short to be frustrated most of the time. So if I have the ability to change something, I'm going to change it. And if speaking up is one thing that's going to help me not feel frustrated, I'm going to speak up. So I encourage you to speak up. I encourage you to advocate. Like, I love what Rosemary said earlier. You can't give people a pass, when they know to do better and they still choose to do wrong. So, sometimes we have to hold one another accountable. And one thing I'll say in the work I do, sometimes it's easier for a white person to talk to another white person about race. So a white person that's woke and that's ally for BIPOC people, it's easier for them to talk to another white person than it is for me to talk to a white person. And my mother is white. So believe me, I get it. Sometimes people don't hear it unless it comes from somebody that looks like them, especially if they're struggling with the idea if racism even exists. So just keep that in mind. Know your biases, and then do the following 5 things every day. So I would really encourage you to do this, to do something active. Treat yourself. It doesn't have to be with food. It could be with the guilty pleasure of watching a TV show you like. Like Renee said, she connected with her friend a couple weeks ago with social, Renee, what did you say? Social distancing was in effect, but it made you feel good. Yeah, that's a treat, right?
I had Bobby and Yadira over to my backyard for drinks.
See?
Nice.
It was so
fun. Yep.
Yeah.
It is fun. It is fun. Tim, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, Rosemary says, I agree with you on that. Also, when we talk with other white folk, we do a lot less damage.
Yeah, that's true. Treat someone else without them asking. So one thing I love is my friends, send me text messages in the morning time. Kim sends me text messages, makes me feel good, makes me feel very loved, very seen, and extremely heard. So, those little things will really elevate our mood. So try something new. I'm not talking about bungee jumping, or skydiving. Don't get crazy now because you've been cooped up in the house, but try something new that's not so crazy and dangerous. And of course, listen before speaking. So all these things right here apply to our students. So if we don't get this down for ourselves, then we won't be able to help our students. And to be honest with you, this is interchangeable. So the top 3 things, if we change that out and say, ask your students the following 3 questions: what makes you feel satisfied? What makes you frustrated? And what are your biases? Students actually really appreciate an opportunity for a safe space and to share about that. Something came up in chat? Nope. Okay. So Rosemary.
No, it did. I'm sorry. I was on mute.
Ahead.
I was on mute.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Robin says, a couple of colleagues and I had afternoon tea via Zoom. It was so nice to connect even at a distance.
Very good. Okay. How to reduce implicit bias. I said Rosemary's name because she brought it up earlier about that it's like you can't get rid of it in a way. I don't know. It's like one of those STDs you can't get rid of for life. I'm being recorded. Doggone it. Erase that, Rachel, on the tape. Okay. It's one of these things you can't get rid of to a certain degree, but you can become woke. You can definitely become more conscious, more socially aware that you have an implicit bias. And I kind of believe that you can in a way minimize your implicit bias if you do work like on a daily basis. I really believe this. So I highlighted some of these yellow things. So you can take a moment and read this because it's a lot. But a couple things that stood out for me to reduce implicit bias: focus on seeing people as individuals. That's like a big, major thing. If we see people as individuals and not group them in a race, and then the stereotype threat sets in, of course, then we'll have more meaningful relationships, and then we can reduce that implicit bias piece, right? Rather than focusing on stereotypes and, considering them on a personal, individual level. Try to deal with people for who they are, not who you think they are based off your experiences. That's not when intersectionality is appropriate. So just kind of putting that out there. A lot of times when people do try to, relate to a person about their experiences, I've realized when someone's doing that to me and I'm talking about something that's serious for me, they're just trying to relate to me. So I do give them grace. because a lot of times it's not meant for them to take the focus off of me. It's really, they're just trying to relate to me. And it's a really, sometimes these topics are so tough that it's hard not to talk about yourself for a minute, because you're trying in your brain to make it make sense for you. And guess what? Some of this stuff with racism will never make sense to us why it happens. So sometimes we just have to listen to someone's experience, like Kelly was saying. Kim, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no, I mean, I can add to that if we have just a minute. I think one of the things that for me as a white woman and working through this awakening has been really having to get into touch with the core of who I am, and realizing that my bias and the racism that I have stems from who I am at my core. So if I'm willing to engage in certain behaviors with people, regardless of what their color is, then I'm going to see that transcend into my bias and my racism. And it's not until I began truly connecting to that, recognizing that, admitting that, and walking away from those engagements and those behaviors, that I was truly able to focus on my bias and my racism.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the piece that we talk about in the collective a lot is individual work. So a lot of times we want to try to figure out what we can do for students, but a lot of times it has to do with our individual transformation, because what we're doing right now is just gaining the knowledge, but now we have to apply it. So there's actual transfer, like utilization, just like we teach with practicum, right? Like you're gaining all the knowledge in the foundational courses, and now you're going to go into the field, and now you're going to apply your knowledge. And we know, those of us that have ever ran a preschool, you know, you can have people that have, I mean, degrees, but without that experience coupled with it, it like really honestly, it's not meaningful. They can't, there's not the understanding of how to you know, really respect all students and have proper classroom management system and that sort of thing. So I mean, applied knowledge is really, really important, and that doesn't change for this type of work. You know, you have to apply it. There's something coming in chat. I see it blinking.
It's the website for the EC Faculty Collective, the Facebook page that Rachel created, and it's a lot of fun. Come join us.
Come join us. And I would really encourage people to, if you're not on Facebook, that's fine. But if you are, let that be a space where we can really share with one another. That'll be nice, that, you know, we can share some ideas. So I love that. I know, Renee, didn't you create another page too for teacher preparation?
There is the California teacher preparation page. I can put that up on the site as well. And that is the general TPP. It's basically postings from any of the community colleges throughout our system that are engaging in teacher prep. I'll get it right now and put it up, Lisa. Perfect.
Yeah, that one is amazing. I get so many wonderful resources from there. So I love that one too. So
Lisa, can you tell them about the collaborative efforts with CCCAOE?
Oh yeah, so CCCAOE has asked for a partnership with CARE, which is our collaborative. It's open to anybody to be a part of our collaborative, by the way. You don't have to be, you know, like an expert in anything, you know, you just have to be willing to learn, and we're all in process. That's what this is. So, but yeah, so CCCAOE is hosting, you might know, Wednesday night talks, roadmap to I always get it wrong, but defining the roadmap to structural racism, that's what it is. That's the name of it. Anyways, Wednesday nights, anybody can join. It is on our anti-racism ed page, how to join that. Okay, so I know Kim put it up there.
I'm gonna grab the also that link. So right now.
So we have a partnership with them, which means that we have delivery of services, actual services, you know, resources for teachers. We have courses, and we have individual coaching we do on how to be an anti-racist. So we have CARE, you know, coaches that will work with individual people or groups. You know, I have a couple clients I work with individually, and a couple organizations that I also work with too. So, which is nice. So CCCAOE has asked us to partner with them so we can also provide that space for all the California community colleges. And we're we'll get more into detail too about a mentorship program that we're rolling out and how that's going to look, probably late spring, early fall next year. There looks like there's some things in chat, but maybe that's just links you're throwing up. I just don't want to miss
It's just
anybody.
links. Yeah, it's
Okay,
just
cool.
links that people are starting to leave to go to other meetings, so I wanted to make sure we had that information up.
Okay,
so
great.
people knew that it was available.
All right,
Thank you.
sounds
Thanks,
good.
Rachel.
Thank you. So we'll just go through this, how to reduce our implicit bias. We're consciously changing our stereotypes. So that's really important. Understanding that stereotypes are a threat to our mental health. And so if we're not careful to undo those, then we will continue to work in a space of implicit bias. So I'll give you an example of a stereotype threat. You see a boy, I don't know, maybe 16-year-old, hoodie on, walking across the street. You're parked in your car at a red light. Do you lock your doors? Do you look twice? Do you feel fear? Now there's a stereotype threat. So just take it for what it is. You go into a grocery store, you have your purse, you see some people that look kind of like unsavory individuals, someone that's you're not used to seeing in your space. Do you hold your purse tighter, or do you just do that because that's who you are? Just some things to kind of think about to yourself. All right, there's some stereotype threats. Anyway, here's another one. Take time to pause and reflect. And so there's the time to pause and reflect. If I'm seeing a person walk across the street, am I conditioned because of the social cognition that I've seen on television, that I'm scrolling at 1 o'clock in the morning on Facebook and seeing images of certain types of looking people that seem like a threat to my well-being? Is that why I'm reacting that way to the young man that's crossing the street with the hoodie on? So, you know, we have to consider all these types of things, you know, when we're in our world. Adjust your perspective is really key. Trying to see from another person's point of view, like Kelly said, you know, you're really not going to understand how it feels to lose a parent until you've lost one. I mean, that's the reality, right? And you can try your best to exhibit and provide a safe space, and empathy and compassion. But yeah, you're not going to be able to totally understand it, but you can definitely do some perspective taking. Increase your exposure is really important. This does not mean look for Black friends, okay? This is not like, okay, I'm gonna go on Facebook now. I'm gonna specifically join groups, look for Black friends and befriend all these Black people, okay? It means to be genuine and intentional, okay? So I worked with a group and so I had them do kind of an assessment, and it was funny, the outcome. One thing I asked them to do, and this was purposefully done, I asked them to go on Facebook and take inventory of how many people of color, non-white, that were in their life. And one woman was like, I only have, out of 1,000 friends on Facebook, I have 2 people, an Asian person and a multi-race person that's my friend. Why is that important? Why do you guys think that's important to take stock about that kind of stuff? In order to increase our exposure. And it's a delicate, you know, it's kind of a delicate balance. You know, you don't want to go out seeking people of different cultures just to say, hey, like we talked about earlier, I've got a Black friend, or I've got an Asian friend, or whatever. But why is it important to take inventory to know who you have around you? Why is that important?
I think if you're actively striving to be an anti-racist person, you need to be aware of that. I know a couple of weeks ago, we had a Black Business Expo in Santa Clarita, which, as many of you know, is a predominantly white area. And so I brought my family. And I'm like, hey, you guys, it's an outdoor Black Business Expo. This would be really interesting. And we were like up on the second floor, and all this stuff was outside. We're going to all these businesses, you know, they're totally socially distant, responsible. And then we're standing there maybe 30 minutes into it, Lisa. And my daughter looks at me and she goes, gosh, Mom, it's really interesting being somewhere where we're the only white family and everyone's Black.
I love it.
And I said, oh, I'm so glad you're I said, that was part of the reason we came today, because it's really important to like, just to think, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Just to think. She did exactly what you wanted her to do. And that's wonderful. You created that space where she can still, you know, she feels safe that she can say that kind of stuff and not be ridiculed or judged, you know?
We have a couple of comments here.
Go for it.
Shoshana says it helps you recognize the voices you are exposed to. Deborah says, I think it helps us become aware of our behavior. If we want to be intentional about challenging racism, we are going to have to make that change.
Very good.
Aware of that.
Yeah. And one thing too about implicit bias, remember it's social cognition. So a lot of times people learn about, just like we talked about the multicultural, like tourism approach to teach about, you know, different cultures and diversity. A lot of times people now will turn on Netflix and they're getting their education about Black people from Netflix or whatever show they're watching. And I have to say this, please, I really caution you to be aware that that is usually a real generalization about Black people. And it's important for us to engage with actual real people, not people that are scripted, or even reality television. A lot of times people watch reality TV, they feel connected to Nene on Housewives of Atlanta. And they think that anybody that kind of looks or behaves like Nene, that's kind of how Nene is, and they feel very comfortable. And those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay, you can look it up later. But that's still not a way to get to understand Black culture, Black people, okay? Nene is one person. So anyway, just keep that in mind. Somebody in another job that I had, every week that we met, she wanted to talk about Greenleafs. And Greenleafs is a show about a mega church, and you know, a Black owned mega church. Anyway, so she really wanted to dive deep into conversation about Greenleafs, really thinking that this is how Black culture is. And I mean, I've been a part of all kinds of different churches. There is some truth there. I mean, that's the thing about stereotypes. There's a little bit of truth there, and then it's really exaggerated. So finally I had to tell her, like, just so you know, these people aren't real. This is a show and it's for entertainment purposes. And we can't keep talking about it like this is real people. So anyways, keep that in mind. And, you know, when you're talking to somebody that's different than you, you know, don't bring up, you know, the latest show you watched that might have had a Jewish person on there. Like now, hey, I watched a show about Jewish people. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but people really do that. And that's their only way they can relate to people. So like I said before, just focus on the individual person and let them share about their life. You know, don't focus on what you think is important for that person's life. Allow them to share. And then the last thing is just practicing that mindfulness. Like really mindfulness is about just being totally aware and being present. And it's hard to be present. Really, it is hard because we're busy, overscheduled, and underfed, and not enough breaks and probably not enough sleep. But that goes back to, you know, what makes you satisfied. That goes back to that self-care piece so we can be more mindful of our actions. Have you ever said or did anything that you regret in the heat of the moment? You know, you weren't really exhibiting that emotional intelligence. I think we all have. And that's usually because we honestly, we're not taking care of ourselves, not enough sleep, whatever, and you're not putting boundaries up. So one thing I've realized is if you have people in your life that drain you emotionally, put up boundaries. Like, I didn't get enough sleep last night myself. I can't get into this conversation with you. And I'm truthful with people. If I get into this conversation with you, it's going to take too much time for me. And I know you need me right now to tell you everything's going to be okay. But please figure it out yourself. Journal, pray, do something else. But I can't do it today because I'm tired myself. So I don't have that capacity. I find when we deal in those spaces of real truth, and it's truth to power for our own life, you know, not in a political sense, but it's for you. It's a protective factor for you. You can say that. And if honestly, you can't say that to a person that always is coming to you for advice constantly, wants to dump on you emotionally. And this is something I say because I've been at ECE for so many years. We're typically the listeners in our family. We're the ones that everybody comes to, and we're just, and we take it all in. And then when we really need like to set a boundary, we almost get angry at the person, and then the person doesn't know how to react. Instead of getting angry, just start setting those boundaries up. Start setting them up, okay? So that way you don't have to get angry because no one knows how you feel. Is that my get off the stage music? That's like Oscar music. Like, wrap it up. That's the wrap up. that the wrap up music, Rachel?
No,
Okay.
it's not the wrap-up music. I don't have the wrap-up music, but we have 8 minutes left, and I would like to give Renee 1 minute at the end to share about the event coming up. So if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I kind of touched on present-mindedness already, and then like intentionality, but definitely, Renee, you can take it away. I'm almost done. So this is just a little thing for you. If you like it, you take a little picture of it. Be purposeful in word and action. Live a life that's meaningful and fulfilling to you. You know, don't make everybody else in your life miserable because you're unhappy. You got to figure it out and make thoughtful choices in your life. I mean, really think it out. Don't do anything anxiously, you know, or with burden. What do we got? Somebody's laughing.
So Angela said, I'm Hispanic and at times have been a victim of some form of racism. The color of a person's skin has never been an issue for me. I am fully aware that we all have differences. We need to look beyond the color of one's skin and accept people for who they are and the positive impact they can make in each other's lives. Just thought I'd share.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
And then I'll say I threw up the CARE website again on there. So if there's anyone who wants to continue these discussions with you, they can go and connect there and reach you through there. Lisa.
Yeah, perfect. I like to just make sure that we're always equity focused first, because we can't get to diversity and we can't get to inclusion and we can't get to accessibility until we're equitable. And here's something to keep us inspired, that schooling is the process by which you institutionalize people to accept their place in a society. Education is the process through which you teach them to transform it. So that's why I always say that we're educators. And make sure you nurture your mind. You know, make that commitment. You can make that commitment today, or maybe you've already made it, which is great. Continue your work to lifelong learning. And I put A at the end of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We have to remember people that are, you know, that are not, that have some disability. It's important to remember that. And that will lead towards being an anti-racist. And then the 7 traits associated with healthy people. I really like this one because I think for early childhood educators, we tend, like I've been saying, not to always take care of ourselves, you know, our bodily needs, you know, make sure we meet them with assertive action. Like if I need to get up and walk, you know, coping skills, so you can ward off that depression that might creep in, making sure you're expressing your emotions. You know, a lot of times we wait till we're frustrated and then we're yelling, or, you know, or we just zone out. Make sure you ask for help when you need it, and accept it when someone wants to give it to you. And we talked about having a sense of purpose, and then make sure that you're playing and you have pleasure in your life. I mean, it's just important. And then the anti-racism piece, we don't have time to go through the definition of it in chat, but here's the definition of anti-racism. It's pretty long, but it's really great. It's everything we've really talked about. And at CARE, we call it radical empathy. It's something that's more digestible, understanding how it feels to really, like Kelly was talking about, perspective taking, you know, what it really feels like to be in a position where you're marginalized and you're looked down upon because of the pigmentation. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing. But it's how people are treated, and it still happens today. So, and then radical empathy, the ability to see individuals as human beings, the intentionality to accept a person for who they are, regardless of what you believe, the process of listening before speaking and not being consumed in your own experience, creating space for individuals to share, and make sure that you commit to loving people in word and in what you do. And we already put up the website. Thanks, everybody. Here's a little ending quote. Relationships before rigor, grace before grades, and patience before programs, love before lessons. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you for allowing me to come today and share. I really appreciate it.
I really want to thank Lisa. Thank you. Lisa was actually, every conversation we have in the collective is all because people say we need to have this conversation. And so Lisa, thank you for meeting our need today. I think you exceeded our need today. So thank you for being here with us.
Of course.
if you ever have any ideas, anything that you want to share, have an idea that you want to share with our community, don't hesitate to reach out to me. January's workshop that we're going to be doing is because somebody said, hey, we're learning about learning stories and I want to share. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have ideas that you want to put forward to this community. So, and remember, we have a Facebook group, live real-time connection with each other. So please, please, please join us. I know I've seen a few people already during this meeting requesting to be members. You're already accepted. So come join us and be a part of the conversations. And again, Lisa, I'm sending you lots of love. Thank you for everything you've contributed today to us.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to make one quick announcement. Lisa, love you, love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be involved in this journey with you and be part of the care team. I appreciate your inclusive nature, and I just appreciate you. Just want to give a huge shout out, everybody. We've got Teach for LA starting on Monday. I have the flip chart up right now, and we put a link in the chat earlier. If somebody wouldn't mind putting the link back up. One thing I just want to point out, there are so many free workshops over the 3 weeks. One of the things too, if you know anybody teaching EDU classes that are struggling to find fieldwork hours for their students, we also have labeled every teacher with a C who has a current teaching credential. So if there's a workshop and there's a credential person on it, we have it listed specifically so that way your students can use that towards their fieldwork if necessary. As you can see, Leah Martinez and the LA colleges, they have 3 weeks of free workshops available. They're at all different days, all different times. You literally just will register individually for each of the activities. I want to also give a huge shout out for Roy Juarez. He is going to be the keynote speaker. Roy spoke last year at the LA Regional Conference, and he is fantastic. He is a young man who has experienced homelessness for the majority of his life, and he is just a story to know and a person to know. Also, I want to give a shout out too on the last day of the conference on Friday, November 20th. They're going to have a virtual networking fair and transfer fair. Please know that many of the workshops that are listed in this brochure are absolutely relevant for early childhood educators. Also for any of you working with future K-12 teachers or people who are in the field who want some inspiration or looking for some professional development. Everything is totally free, and we'd appreciate if you could share it. The more we can share it, the better it is. I'll put that right in the box right now. And please feel free to share it wide. Thank you so much, everybody, for being there. With that, I will give it back to Rachel.
So thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating. Know that we are a community. We're here to support. Anything we can do to support you, please reach out. Thank you again for being here today. And have a great rest of your week. If you celebrate Happy Halloween, Happy Halloween. If you don't celebrate Happy Halloween, ignore what I just said. And I look forward to seeing you the next time.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I told Tony we'd be a couple of minutes late because our meeting's ending.
Thanks. I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick and grab a sandwich too, because I got to keep going. So I'm going to.
Yeah.
I'll see you over there. Thanks so much. And again, thanks, Rachel, for always holding this generous space. And it's so wonderful.
It was such a good conversation today.
Yeah.
That could have been like a 3 hour.